And like I said, I'm not going to, I'm going to try never to give you actual homework. So we're going to go through this. Not going to spend a ton of time on it. And then you'll have 3 things to do. The 2 new assignments and finish off anything that you haven't done yet. How does that sound to everybody?
Is it all due tomorrow?
Well, I don't know. We have to talk about due dates. You know, I think I put tomorrow, but the problem is, and this is a interesting situation. You know, usually I haven't really given much in terms of this will take forever types of assignments. But if I write, due next week, then you don't work on it. And technically you're supposed to be doing, synchronous and asynchronous work. So if I write that it's due tomorrow and I give you the rest of the class after we're done this presentation, then technically, as far as anybody's concerned, you're sitting at home doing the work. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So Canadian security and law enforcement institutions. Everybody knows about a few of those things on the picture there, like the OPP, etc. But we talked about CSIS, RCMP. But there are a number of different institutions. So let's go through them. Okay, there are federal institutions, provincial institutions, municipal institutions, and of course, other types of institutions. And what are they? The federal institutions include things like the Parliament of Canada, Health Canada, Public Safety Canada, which we've seen in the news often. Health Canada talking all the time. Dr. Tam being the head of the doctor. So we'll just go over some of these things that we've already gone over, right? The 3 agencies that are part of the federal legislation, the Revenue Agency, also known as the CRA, Elections Canada, and of course the Parliamentary Protective Services. And we'll get to what those mean, right? So the CRA, who here has filed their taxes? I see one hand up, but I only see 5 people. So, if you're working, then you have to pay tax. Now, if you make under a certain amount, I believe it's around $10,000 a year, which is probably how much you guys made if you had some type of a part-time job. You either don't get tax taken off by your employer, or if you have had tax taken off, you get it all back come tax time, right, as a refund. Matthew, is that painter's tape? Are you painting? Or you just like to hold painter's tape? Maybe. All right. Right? Now, the Parliamentary Protective Service. Physical security throughout Parliament and Parliament Hill. A couple years ago, there was a terrorist attack on Parliament Hill. Do you guys remember that? Yes, no, maybe. So basically, a gunman, I believe there was 1 or 2 involved, stormed into the Parliament Hill after killing somebody at the Cenotaph. And Sergeant at Arms, which is the highest level of the protective service, has a weapon, a gun, and he shot him and got him in the Parliament building. He made it all the way inside, right? So though we live in Canada, we often think we're a pretty safe country. Unfortunately, incidents like this do happen once in a while. And thus, we need to be prepared. Agricultural Canada, there's one agency involved, and it's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Seems like at least once a month or so on the radio, you hear like a recall. Right now, the latest one was that I can remember was the red onions, or onions, right? Onions have salmonella or E. coli, so if you bought onions, I wouldn't eat them, right? And that's this responsibility of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Very, very important, because everybody eats food, and they inspect whether or not the food is good enough, literally, to eat. Because if they don't, and somebody accidentally or deliberately sells tainted food, the population could get really sick. Right? So they safeguard food, plants, animals, etc., and thus helping the citizens, right? And so they wear a badge. If you've ever been in Toronto and you notice in restaurants, I mean, I don't know when the next time you'll be going to restaurants is or whatever, if they open them, close them, there's usually a green sign. In fact, they have them in York Region too, right at the window visible of any kind of food establishment. That's these guys, right? And their subordinates. Basically saying they've gone into your restaurant, they found that it's clean, practices, etc., and it helps everybody, right? The Canadian Heritage Department, 3 sections: the Canadian Radio, Television, Telecommunication Commission, the National Battlefields Commission, and the National Capital Commission. The CRTC, they basically enforce, rules like anything from swearing on TV. So Canada has some interesting rules about swearing on radio and TV. Are you allowed to have a show that has swearing? Can you, or what happens when there's swearing involved in the television show?
Doesn't
Like
it? Sorry. Doesn't it
No, go ahead.
rated PG-13 X, like something like that, of the sorts?
So basically, let's say we're watching a live television show and somebody swears. What happens? The weirdest thing is the use of the F word between American and Canadian films. What? Please elaborate, Tyler. Movies. What do you mean? When being shown in Canada? Oh. Yeah. So, okay. So there's different things, but it's the same agency, just the Canadian equivalent and the American equivalent, right? We talk about that as being something about censorship. Now, let's say we're watching a live television show in Canada, or we're listening to the radio and someone swears. What happens? Have you ever heard somebody swear on the radio or live television?
They
What happens?
They
They
bleep
bleep
it out, don't they?
But how do they bleep it if we're watching it live?
Because there's a bunch of people on a panel.
A delay.
Ah, there you go. So there's
It's
always
like a 5-second.
And this is why there's a delay, and that's done by the CRTC. So isn't it legal in some places in Canada to swear on radio? I believe the laws are, and we're not going to get them into too much detail, after a certain time of day, and also songs. So you'll notice that when you're listening, I don't know if anybody here actually listens to the radio, but some songs are censored. So there's censored versions of songs, and other songs don't really have a censor. They still say an F word or what have you. And it's interesting. It's not about the fact that it's been censored or they forgot to censor. There's some very strange laws when it comes to music and swearing. If the word is a part of the poetry of the song, it's typically not censored. If it's like, a very aggressive type of censor or word, and it's deliberate and it's not poetry, but it's maybe for aggression, if you will, it is censored. But again, I believe after 9 o'clock or maybe 8 o'clock, the censorship laws change for radio, at least, right?
Yeah, like I've noticed in some songs, like they're censored, but in some, like they're not. I think it. I thought it depended on like how bad the swear word is. I don't know.
I believe it has to do with the context. So there's this one really famous song, and when it came out in the one I'm thinking about, it's by Everlast. Let me see if I can find it. What It's Like. by Everlast. Okay, so you ever heard of the song Jump Around by Jump, Jump, Jump Around? I'm sure, okay, you guys have gone to a high school dance before when we still had them. It's the singer from that band. And I think he only swears once, but the whole song is censored. There's a radio edit, and the words are things like green. The word green is censored, and things like that. And it's because it's the context. But as we progress through history and time, things get changed, and censorship ideals change too. Anyway, that's the CRTC. Right? The National Battlefields Commission. So there's a few historical battlefields in Canada, not too many. One most famous one is the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City. Has anybody ever been there? Maybe on a, Plains of Abraham. I went on a school trip, and we went tobogganing on the Plains of Abraham. And so there's a commission, and they're police patrol, but that's all they do. That's where they work. The National Capital Commission, if you go to Ottawa, in the National Capital Region, they have their own special officer force, etc. This one's an interesting one, the Environment and Climate Change Agencies. So basically, what do you think they do?
Help the environment.
Okay, but how?
Are these like park rangers?
Yeah, they could be. Yeah, but they also do other things.
Do they like try and draft laws? Not like specialized laws, but kind of come up with new ideas on how Canada can implement climate change better.
Well, it's a good question, because remember back in grade 10 how laws come into effect and who enforces them, right? So whoever comes up with the laws is always a different entity than who enforces the laws. Remember? And so, a park ranger, if anyone's ever gone to a provincial park, there's park rangers, and they patrol the place, for different reasons. But of course, there are factories in Canada too. And there are laws stating that factories cannot pollute certain amounts of pollutants into the air, right? There's a limit to how much they can pollute. Unfortunately, there's a limit, meaning they can pollute to a certain extent, right? And these are enforced by these agencies, right? Wildlife enforcement. So if anybody here fishes, in order to fish, you need to go to, Canadian Tire or somewhere and get a license to fish, right? You can't just go and fish or hunt, right? And if you're caught fishing without a license, does anybody know what the penalty is? Even if you didn't catch a fish. Let's say you get a boat, you go into a lake, you throw in a fishing rod reel into the water, and the enforcement branch catches you. Money, one aspect of it is money, but there's a lot more to it. They, by law, will take your boat, all your gear, and the car that had the trailer for your boat. And how much is a fishing license per year? It's like $50. So there's absolutely no point in cheating the system like that, right?
Do you need to be at a certain age in order to fish?
Yeah, I think you have to be a certain age to have a license. I think if you're under a certain age, you don't need a license.
So does that mean that you can fish or no?
Yeah. But only if the law states that you can fish at that place, right? Same with, bird. You can't just shoot a bird, right? Certain animals are restricted for hunting, et cetera, et cetera. The Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. Am I hearing my voice? right? We talk about the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Climate change is, yes, Matthew.
Aren't you like allowed to like kill anything or hunt anything if you're indigenous?
That's a good question. In Indigenous peoples of Canada have, I'm not going to say they have their own laws and rules, but there are different laws sometimes, right? And historically, when we talk about hunting, the Indigenous hunt for necessity and typically use an entire animal, right? So they're much more environmentally friendly when we talk about hunting, whereas the typical, North American of non-Indigenous descent, and I'm talking stereotypes, hunts a deer for the antlers and maybe the food and leaves the rest there, or throws out the bones or what have you. But, historically, Indigenous would use every single part of the animal, right? And only take what they need. Park wardens, right? Very important, because Canada is full of national parks, provincial and national parks, and conservation areas. Areas that by law nothing can be built upon, etc. Now, why do we have those things? Why do we have to have places that are officially have to stay in their natural state?
Maybe because they have important animal habitats.
They have important animal habitats. So what else? What would happen if you look at a topographical map of Canada? Most of it is forest. A lot of it is. But as our population grows, we need to expand our geography and place dwellings, homes in certain areas. And certain areas have to be protected so that companies don't just clear the land everywhere or wherever they want to build new houses and subdivisions, right? So again, going back to the fisheries and oceans, as a Canadian fisheries in especially the East Coast have suffered greatly. Many years ago, it was all over the news that basically there's no more fish, off the coast of Newfoundland. And most of the industry in Newfoundland is fisheries. So that's a big problem. And they started figuring it out that a lot of Spanish boats were coming from Spain and taking the fish that were in Canadian waters. And this has been happening for so long that basically they fished out all the fish. And now it's illegal to fish in certain parts of Canada because we need to get the population of the fish back up. But in doing so, all these people and generation after generation of fishermen and women, fisher people, don't have income, So sometimes people realize that to save the environment, the humans have to suffer. And that's a hard thing to understand and to accept for a lot of people, right? So we talk about the environment as a big issue. When there was a big poll with young people, what's your most important issue when it came to the last federal election last year? And environment was at the top, right? But in order to save the environment, often we have to, sacrifice things for humanity. So it's the key is to find balance, but it's not easy to find balance, especially in these cases, right? The Coast Guard, very important. Canada has a lot of coast, and they basically have ensure the safety of the people. They help people if they're abandoned and call for security, but also help keep the borders, right? They have radar. They can see if anybody's coming into Canada. Now, they're becoming more and more important right now because of what's happening in the northern part of Canada. Can anybody explain what's happening?
It's melting.
It's melting. So what does that mean?
There's new trade routes.
There are new trade routes. So if a boat wants to get from the east coast of North America to the west coast, that's a big trip because you got to go all either through the canal, Panama Canal in the middle, which is still much way south, or go all the way even further south around the bottom of Argentina and Chile, or what's happening now, especially in the northern part of the world and shipping, is the ice is melting in the Arctic and a trade route is opening. But it's all part of Canada's geography and owned by Canada, protected by Canada. So a lot of people in Canada are like, we don't want these crazy big shipping container ships coming through the Arctic. I mean, the pollution that comes from one of those shipping container ships is tremendous. And, you know, this is a big issue for people and the government, right? We already talked about fishing. Health Canada, very, very important, especially during the COVID times, right? Health Canada is the agency, federal department that basically regulates everything to do about people's health, right? And so, you know, we see Dr. Tam on TV all the time. You know, even in Ontario, we see, I can't remember her name. What's the name of the doctor in Ontario who's always with Ford? Off the top of my head, I can't remember right now. Anyway, her, right? And so the number one thing on people's minds for the last 7 months is health, right? And the government is, it's an interesting time because right now a lot of people are thinking we're going into a second wave. And so we open schools, but what's going to happen, right? Are we going to shut down again? What do you guys believe? What are your parents thinking? What are you guys talking about?
I think they're gonna shut down schools, but like they can't really shut down the rest of the economy because it really did take a hit. So I think they're gonna go back to like stage 2.
I think as
Maybe
it gets
we'll be
older, the
online.
cases are gonna go up again, and also like there's a lot of people that like completely forgot about safety protocol.
Yeah.
Like, if you drive past parks, like nobody's social distancing, like everyone's like all up in each other's faces. Like,
Also with like the weather getting colder, it's just genuinely flu season during the cold times because our breath particles travel farther. Like our germs get everywhere. And I think that's a big thing as to why the numbers have been so down and then why the numbers will go back up.
Sure. Do you think that, who here is in cohort A or B? Have you guys seen what it looks like at the front of school at the end of the
Yeah.
day?
The
Yeah,
first day, like Mr. Sir video came and he like yelled at everyone and told them to go, but it didn't really work.
Well, it doesn't work because there's too many students to technically fit 6 feet apart or 2 meters. And
What happens?
where are they going to stand? In the middle of the driveway and parking lot when cars are coming one by one? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not easy, all these different protocols, right? And every day I'm getting emails saying, you know, this student has switched to cohort C. This student has switched to cohort C, right? And in the elementary school panel, it's like, it's crazy. I have some friends who are teaching in elementary, and it's like every day 10 kids in the school, 20 kids in the school, another one are switching to homeschool. No, the school wasn't made with something like this in mind. Exactly. I mean, St. Rob's already had a crazy, you know, entrance exit there. It's been nuts. At about, when I'm sitting in class, because I got my grade 9s, and at about, so class ends at 11. At 10:30 on, from 10:30 to 11, all I hear, because I'm in the portable, is honk, 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 honk. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
why
Also,
doesn't
it's
everyone
just like, you know
like
how many
Walmart?
Oh, I was saying, like, you know how many doors you have to open and everybody's touching that doors?
Yeah, well, that too, right?
Like, they should
That's
just
true.
keep all of them open.
Well, I have some of my friends just like at other high schools have been talking and like we've been communicating and they've been saying, well, like their school already has 5 cases.
Really rare. In what board though?
It's the Catholic board.
In our board? Huh. I haven't heard anything about our board yet.
Yeah, so she was saying that but I guess it's also if they're communicating it to the schools,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, we'll see. I have no idea. Can't speculate. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm sure that we'll probably be told to continue teaching the way we teach now, not like the way we did it in March, April, May, June. That was, not real school. This at least, and that's why we set up this model, because I think they knew that if in the potential that we close down again, that we can continue this model, right? Because even if you come to school in A and B, it's exactly the same as the kids at home, right? Exactly the same.
Do you think we're going to close down, sir?
I don't know. I mean, speculation is speculation, right? You can do anything. Anything. Only time will tell. I know for a fact that we have way more cases even today than we did when we shut down, right? We started school with more cases than we did when we shut down, right? But only time will tell. Don't cry, Sarah. It's okay.
Yeah, but when we shut down, we were having like 30 kids in a class and 4 classes. It's still way more exposure.
Of course it is. But I'm not even talking about schools, just in general. They didn't close down the schools because of the school cases. They closed down the schools and everything else because of all cases, right?
Well, I think like Frosh Week at high school, at universities have been a big thing. Like
Have
keeping
you actually had Frosh Weeks? Do you have friends in First Year University?
Yeah, at Western there's like I think there's like 3 new cases. I'm not sure.
Queens, they had to shut down the pier because 300 students showed up. Like they're very much continuing.
They have parties and everything. Like they don't follow any rules.
I remember
If I was there,
Queens had like a St. Patrick's
You were there?
party. It was on the news.
If I was there, I'd go.
Well, that's the thing, right? You look forward to you only have Frosh Week once in your life, so you can't, and it's hard to be mad at these kids because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And unfortunately, I mean, like you guys have already done, this is your 4th year of high school, right? I'm teaching a grade 9 class, excuse me. I feel so bad for them because they never got to experience what it's like to be a part of a club or be a part of a sports team or hang out with friends or have lunch. There's no lockers, there's no lunch, there's nothing. And these kids are so scared. Like you
Imagine
walk
trying to make friends in grade 9 now.
Who makes friends in grade 9?
No, like imagine you go into a new school and like you only see like the first 7 people and that's it.
Yeah. How are you supposed to make friends? I know my class, so I have, 15 kids in the class every day. They're not talking to each other. They're afraid to talk to each other.
But
It's
those
sad.
people that are going to parties because of those once in a lifetime opportunities, that's being selfish.
Of course it's being selfish, Hope. I'm just saying you can't blame a kid who's been waiting their entire life, who's 18 years old, no offense, that they made that choice. Yes, it's selfish. Yes, it's but it is what it is.
I think
But
it's
it's
also,
not like
I feel like it's also like I personally, I can say that I wouldn't do it. When you're wrapped around within the university, you see all these people going out. It just like it's easier said than it is done. Like sitting on the outside, you can be like, "Oh, that's so ridiculous. How could anyone do that?" But then when you're involved and immersed into the life of a university student,
Yeah, peer pressure, come on, we're going, come on. And then, you want to make friends. Let's say you go to university, you don't really know anybody there. You might have 1 or 2 friends that are in the same university. You're trying to make friends and naivete takes over, right? You got to make friends. You got to do this. You got to do that, right?
I
Not to
understand.
Most people who have died or are dying of anything are people with, older people or immunocompromised people. So what does that mean? The mentality is what I'm saying is that like, well, I'm young, I'm healthy. If anything happens, I'm not going to die. And there's a selfish belief system and things like that. But that's what I'm saying. You got to understand it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it really sucks that you know, the world is like that, and you guys are in this. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen 1 year from now in September when you guys go to university. You know, if a vaccine shows up, does that mean everything's back to normal? I don't know, because you have to remember the whole world is dealing with this, right? And every country is dealing with it very differently. I'm sure you've seen the United States. You know, the big thing, the projection released yesterday is that they're going to have 500,000 deaths by, there you go, Matthew. By the end of this year. That's only, they're at 200,000 now. So in 3 months, that's another 500,000, or sorry, another 300,000 deaths.
That's
Right?
kind of depressing.
Sure, of course it's
Yeah.
very depressing. But
Certainly-
Canada's not dealing with those numbers. And that's what I'm saying. So every country is dealing with the pandemic in their own way. Some are much more stringent. And I'm not just talking the government, right? This is politics. I'm talking the people, right? You know, Sweden's been all over the news for not really doing much, except for the fact that their people follow guidelines. In the United States, it seems, you know, I don't live there, I don't go there, but what do you see? People not caring, deliberately not wearing a mask, deliberately, you know, partying, all that stuff, right? So when we talk about politics, we also talk about the people of the people.
But
Thank goodness we live in Canada. All I can say.
like in some countries, there are no guidelines. Like my family, they all go to work, even though Corona is like really bad there because they have to make money. Like
Well, that's the other thing.
works
So
never closed there,
where
it's-
and where?
like in Iran.
Iran, yeah.
Yeah.
But I know one of my best friends is from Iran, and he was telling me, you know, culturally, Iranians have a, you know, let's live every day to the fullest type of
Yeah.
attitude. And if I die, I die. Let's party today. And again, that's not a positive or negative thing. That's a cultural thing, right? I remember when this first started, he sent me a video. Somebody sent him a video from back home of the outside of a building, like an apartment building, and there was all these parties happening in the building, right? And that was the same time when we here were like totally locked down, couldn't even go for a walk, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cultural thing. Now, unfortunately, Iran had a huge amount of cases, especially at the beginning. But, right, so go back to Health Canada. Health Canada gives us some guidelines, but it's up to the population to follow them, right? The Regulatory Operations and Enforcement Branch. You know, we have regulations, health inspectors, etc. Indigenous services. So someone asked about, I keep hearing myself in the background. Indigenous, do they have the same law as Canadian, as other Canadians? Mark, is that yours? That keeps, like, someone's, I keep hearing like an echo of my, anyway, it doesn't
Not
matter.
me.
Oh, okay. Hello? Hello?
Mark, mute yourself. It's like
Oh, yeah.
bouncing off of yours.
There we go. It was Mark. All right. Indian oil and gas. You know, in Canada, we talk about Indigenous and the word Indian and how that's, you know, very culturally inappropriate and stuff. But officially, there's still a lot of changes that have to be done, especially with things like Indian Oil and Gas Canada, right? At least the Indigenous Services name is now Indigenous Services, but even that kind of thing, right? So, you know, reserves have gas, have oil, and this agency controls how that oil is used, right? The Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada the Competition Bureau. So what do you think they do? How can we have a Competition Bureau? Well, things like what needs to be regulated when we talk about innovation. Let's say companies, patents, right? Come up with an idea. There has to be some type of regulatory agency that says you can't copy. Another company can't just copy all the hard work that did, that kind of stuff, right? And then the Better Business Bureau, which is a sub agency. They're in place so they don't rip off the average customer. Everybody knows about the National Defense. Well, there's 6 agencies in the National Defense: the Canadian Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Special Forces, the Military Police, and the Communications Security Establishment. Each one of those has their own special, region, if you will, and basically there's a national defense forces, right? So the Army is the soldiers, multiple defense or so forth. Canada has never really gone on offense, but has been part of many notable wars: World War I, World War II, etc. The Navy, of course, is the maritime forces on the water and under the water and in the air. The Air Force also has air. Oftentimes we're like, well, is the Navy only the water? Well, yes and no. And then, of course, the Special Task Forces, these are like the ultimate, like Green Berets or the American Navy SEALs, et cetera, right? Now, who polices the military? Well, they have their own special military police, right? They're called MPs, military police. And they have their own prisons, etc. And they enforce the laws within their own, the soldiers. Vanya, are you there? I just got an email about you and your textbook. Did you ask is Vanya there?
Yeah.
Did you just contact the office about a textbook?
My dad went to pick it up.
He just went right now?
Yeah.
And does he have a text? Can you text him and say, I have a textbook? Here, hold on. Let me just text. I never gave it to them, but I have one. I just got some. I just told him he can come by Portable L if he wants to. I don't know if they're going to allow that, but maybe you can text him.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just put it right outside the door. Tell him. Here, I'll tell her. Is he there now?
I'm not sure.
Okay, anyway, give me 1 sec. I'm going to put the textbook. If you don't have a textbook, can you write down? I know I've asked 1,000 times. Tyler, did you get your textbook? Anyway, write in the yes, okay. Only if you did not get a textbook, write I did not get a textbook in this current chat, please.
I always forget that there's other people in this class. I feel like it's just the 5 of us because it's the only.
I know
people
it's
we
always the
see.
same people we see. Is that because only Vincenzo, you still haven't got one? Yes, I know. I'm writing it down. Is that-
Everyone needs to put on the camera and talk.
Sir, I don't have my number. I still don't have a number.
Show me the textbook. Do you have it with you? Huh?
that you can see?
There's nothing in there. What about on like the spine?
Yeah. No, yeah, like here it says like 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, like 5,000 times.
So that's probably the number.
Yeah, but a kid wrote it. I can tell.
Well, maybe an adult did, but you know, not everyone has great handwriting. Ageist much?
Okay.
What's Tyler? 9705. That's yours? You're supposed to submit it in the Google form. There's a Google form I've posted somewhere in the class. Yeah. Okay. So only Kexon or whatever your other name is, Vincenzo, both of you don't have one. Vanya, you'll probably get one today. That's it. Okay. Let's go back to work. The National Security Establishment. Basically, you know, they work with communication on the internet and things like that, right? You know, the internet's opened up our world, opened up our country. People try to get in through, you know, not just the government agencies, but locally too, to people. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten a telephone call. I get them at least once a day from, you know, Chinese, like, I don't even know what they're doing. They're telling me about something. FIDO, China's department or something.
I think I got one during this class.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's always like a 416 number. Well, these guys are the ones that are part of trying to get that to.
Just put them on hold and don't come back. That's what I do.
Natural
right.
Resources Canada, right? Canada has a lot of natural resources. Basically everything we mine, you know, coal, diamonds, gold, we have wood, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it'd be great if this is how we're going to be doing class from now on, that they change the bells, right? Especially that 2:30 one. That's the best one because used to signify end of class. Now it's like, nope, you got half an hour left, chump. All right. Moving on. Nuclear Safety Commission. Nuclear power, arguably very safe, arguably not safe. Big part of the way we get power, right? There are 2 nuclear power plants within 100 kilometers of us. Did you know that? There's one in Pickering and one just down the street from Pickering.
If they blew up, would we die?
I passed that on the way to go get my driving test. It's like
Yeah, you went out there. So if they blew up, would we die? Well, did you guys watch the show about the true events in Chernobyl? No? Fantastic show. Came out last year. Highly recommend it. That was a meltdown, as they're called. And basically, that whole region is not inhabitable now for basically many, many lifetimes. In Fukushima, Japan, when the tsunami created a giant wave. Actually, isn't a tsunami a wave? Yes. Destroyed that one. Not able to be there anymore either. Now, you know, let's hope that never happens. What I can tell you is I know some people who live in that region, and the government sends them pills every year, iodine pills. In the case of a nuclear meltdown, you take iodine pills, and then they come in the mail. So, you know, right? The CER, Canadian Energy Regulator. We have a lot of oil and gas companies, power lines, etc. And of course, you know, they need to be regulated, right? When you put fuel in your car, you'll notice that it always says, I know you guys are all about driving now, you typically have 3 different types of fuel, right? It's about how much octane is in there or how clean the gas is. If you ever go to Shell, you always see these, you know, ads like clean detergent in their fuel, that kind of stuff. Well, all this stuff is regulated by the government. The smell you smell from gas is not natural. It's been added to make it repulsive, literally, so you don't, you know, so you think it's poison, because it is poison. Nuclear safety, okay, so here we go. In Ontario, We have the Bruce nuclear power plant, the Pickering nuclear power plant, the Darlington nuclear power plant. Those are the two I'm talking about, which are really like down the street from each other. And another one, the Point Lepreau, in New Brunswick. So let's hope nothing ever happens. They're very safe. Proponents of nuclear energy say it's the safest of all types of energy. You do have to dispose of very dangerous materials. Usually it's buried, or in the case of the Russia, they sunk it in the ocean, and then now that's going to cause problems. But the potential of it being hazardous is very, yes, Matthew.
Why can't we shoot it into space?
It's a good question. Because it'd be really expensive. Really expensive. I think, and I don't know. I don't think they've figured that out.
That's more important than killing the environment.
Is what more important?
It's too expensive to put up into space, but it would definitely be better for the environment than burying it or putting it in the ocean.
Acid rain.
Sure. Remember what I was talking about, though, earlier today? The environment is expensive to keep clean. And, humans are not always at the forefront of, most people, when they're like, okay, we'll fix the environment, but where your tax dollars will go up. Oh, okay, then I don't want to fix the environment because I don't want my tax dollars to go up, right?
I mean, sir, but if they reallocate taxes, that'd be a good idea.
Like from what? Education?
I don't know, not for Canada necessarily, but other countries, they need less war, more environment.
Sure. I mean, the Americans spend enough money on their military that some would say, feed every single person in the whole world, right? But this is politics, and that's why we're in this class, to learn about the way that our resources are used, right? And it's, often we talk about the government, but the government is not real. You have to remember this. The government is a created story. It's fictional. It's not a thing, a person. But that's the way most people talk about it, right? We say, the government did this, the government did that. Yes, there can be politicians who are individuals, and they make individual choices, and some have more power than others. But the government does not exist. It's a created story. There's a great book that you guys should read one day. It's called Sapiens. Have you ever heard of it? It's pretty. It talks about that. It talks about how institutions that people see as being alive, or the way we talk about them in everyday discourse, are just stories, are just created by us and given life, right? There's a book called Freakonomics that talks about, if corporations were treated as human beings, like by law, they would be, sent to jail for being psychopathic, right? But we still refer to them as being entities, as being real things. And that's a big part of the politics class, is understanding that all of this is just a story. All of it is made up, right? It's how we choose. Are you dressed as a cow and drinking out of an udder? I don't understand. Is that a giant udder? Is it full of cow's milk?
No.
Mama's milk? Was that what it says?
It says mammoth mug. And it's water.
Hydro homies, good. All right. I got water too. Okay, moving on. Public safety, CSIS, RCMP. The RCMP, we already discussed, is equivalent of the FBI in the States, right? Often in Canadian terms, people know more about the American departments of safety than they do about Canadian safety. CSIS is like the CIA, right? The Central Intelligence Agency. Both are secretive. I do have a very good friend from university who works for CSIS. Can't tell me anything that's going on, but it's there for the safety, right? The correctional services, basically the way that the prisons work. In Canada, we do not have private prisons. Fun fact, American prison system has private prisons. Literally prisons for profit, which is, arguably, some would say, kind of an oxymoron, because the point of a prison, some would say, arguably, is to rehabilitate people. They do a crime, they go to prison, they learn to be better people. The private prison in the States, some argue, creates a system where people are sent to jail, and the more people are sent to jail, the more these companies make money.
Aren't they like forced to do like really, really cheap labor?
Well, it depends on, depends. In Canada, again, I'm trying to make stuff as real world as possible. In Ontario, you'll notice that we have blue license plates that were like all over the news, remember? And then Ford brought them out and they were all crap. And then he took them back. And before the blue license plates came out, we had these license plates that everybody who has them, they're like peeling off, right? You guys have a car like that or know a car where the license plate's peeling off? And then the ones that came out before the ones that peel off are still in perfect condition. Like my mom's license plate, which is from like 1987, still perfectly good condition, everything. They were made at the Kingston Penitentiary by inmates. And they would get paid to do this, not very much. And labor, so it's not forced labor. But then the Kingston Penitentiary closed down. The license plate factory closed down. A private company was given the rights to make the license plates. They're flawed. And then, yes, they are recalled, but, some people still have them. And then they made them up
in the dark.
What's that?
The new ones are not visible in the dark.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know. And you guys, I'm sure you guys have been driving now at night, or maybe you're not allowed to with the G1. I don't know. Oh, my neck. I can't sit sideways anymore. Good thing my wife's a chiropractor. All right. Yeah, you can't see them at all. It's nuts. Like, I didn't believe it the first time I saw one at night after it was all over the news. You cannot see that license plate. And they're still driving around the city. I just bought a brand new car last week, and I don't get that one. I got a regular one. I was really hoping for the blue invisible one.
What kind of car did you get?
A VW All-Track. Golf All-Track. That's pretty sweet. Are you Googling it? All right. Am I looking at you guys or am I looking at the side mirror? No, I'm looking at the wrong one. I have two going on. Here, how about I do this? I'll open this one and I'll turn this one off. There we go. It's so weird. I have two computers when I'm with you guys and three computers when I have all like the actual class.
If you're doing if you're like looking straight, you should put on the microphone on the camera that you're looking straight, because whoever's talking, like, you see their screen first.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. There, is that better? Oh, not better. Oh wait, I have to mute this one. That was like the Twilight Zone, man. Okay, there you go. See, it's all so new. All this craziness. When we, you know how you guys started like a few days late, the teachers were still here. And we spent one day trying to figure out how we're going to do this properly. Because I need to see the chat on the right. And I need to be presenting at the same time. So I need, at least two screens, basically. Because you can't fit all of it onto one screen. It'll be too small. Anyway. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, the most famous of all the Canadian police, the ones with the red suits and horses, right? One of the oldest establishments as well in Canada. And basically, when there's no local police, the RCMP are the ones that are there to police. CSIS, right? The secret agencies. Do they have spies? I don't know. If they would have spies, these would be the people that would be the spies, right? The British have MI5. Yeah, I think James Bond is MI6, but there's no such thing as MI6. They have MI5, or so they say, right? Very important, especially in the news lately, the Canadian Border Services Agency. There's been a joint agreement between the United States and Canada to block the border. These are the people that enforce it, right? You go shopping down to the Buffalo, you come back, these are the guys that talk to you. Correctional services, let's hope nobody has to deal with them. Basically, the prison system. The parole board, once you're granted or denied or canceled the parole system, excuse me. It's also allergy season, which is, we have flu season, allergy season, cold season, and COVID season. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right.
Wait, sir, I had a question about the
CISC, basically criminal intelligence. They look at things like the mafia, if it exists, right? Canada Post, also it's an agency which people don't realize is an enforcement agency or has a section of it, right? It's very, very illegal to tamper with somebody's mail. Not allowed. In fact, it's a federal crime if you open somebody's mail. And that seems to be the case for most world organizations when it comes to mail, right? So fraud, voter fraud, or mail fraud. The United States mail system is in the news every day now because of what's going on with the mail-in ballots, etc., right? Transport Canada, very important, but a lot of it's on pause right now, especially when we talk about the airlines. I know a guy who used to be an airline mechanic at Air Canada, got fired because of COVID. They'd have 50,000 flights go through Pearson. Now it's an average of 1,000 flights. So that's what we've gone from, right? One day maybe we'll travel again. But even if things get better here, other parts of the world have to get better too. So we shall see. Right? There you go. Et cetera, et cetera. When you see, on the news, a Karen doesn't want to put her mask on the plane. These are the guys that, it's legit. It's a legit word now, Rosaria. Did you just say, I can't believe you said that.
I was just laughing at it.
I feel bad for all the Karens out there.
There's actually a law that's passed.
What? Wait.
There's a law passed, I think.
Muted. Oh, see, I can't mute. Wait a second. Hold on. Okay, say something.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if anybody has been talking, actually, because I had it muted.
Oh.
I said, yeah. I feel bad.
There's a law passed now, and it's called Karen.
A Karen law?
Yeah.
And what is the Karen law?
It's falsely calling the police. So
Yeah.
like you can be fined if you call the police and you don't have justifiable reasons to do so. Like you think you have justifiable reasons, but the police are like, that's really not anything to do with us.
No.
You get
I
fined.
think, but that's in the States, isn't it?
No, I think it's Ontario law.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Wait, sir, I had a question about the homework, like the assignments you posted. Are we supposed to
From
go
today or yesterday?
from today, like the ones you posted before class. Are we supposed to like Google them?
Which one?
The political classifications guide.
Well, we've covered a lot of the stuff in the slides in the last couple days, but yes, do
Okay.
research that with things that you haven't. I haven't assigned any textbook reading yet because not everyone has a textbook, but hopefully, if only Kexin Liu and Vincenzo Lee are the only ones that don't have textbooks, I'll get those to you. Oh, I sent him away. I'll let him know to come by tomorrow if you want to leave it on the table. Okay, so Vanya, you didn't get a textbook. Unless you were able to text your dad to tell him to come. Here, let me go check my outside. Nope, I still have it. Anyway, okay. Okay, so similar to those are all the federal agencies. We also have provincial agencies. You know, very similar, but more local. I do want to give you guys time to work on stuff right now, so I'm not going to go through it as much detail, but I like talking, especially on about different stuff like we talked about. The SIU, we've all seen the television show, you know, whatever SIU, Special Investigation Unit, Parks, Environment, Ministry of Finance, right? Fraud, things like that. Taxes, blah, blah, tourism, culture. Anything notable in here? OPP, they patrol the 400 series highways. This morning on my drive to work, I had to go exactly 100 kilometers an hour because there was 2 OPPs on the highway the whole time I was going. The Quebec have their own version. Royal Newfoundland have their own version of the OPP.
So does the OPP just worry about the highways? Do they do anything else?
That's you know, waterways and highways, but they do. As I said, when there's areas in Canada that don't have police, it's usually the RCMP or the local provincial police like the OPP. So up in cottage country, it's typically the OPP that's the police on a much grander scale, right?
I have a question.
Okay.
So you know how yesterday we were speaking about how the Royal Canadian Police are equivalent to the FBI,
Yeah, the RCMP, yeah.
the RCMP. Why is like maybe it's just because of television shows, but why is it like in the States the FBI are like this high tech group organization that deals with these advanced things, and then ours are on horses?
It's just it's what we see. History. So in the United States, we see them, you know, like who do you think of when you think of the FBI? You think of someone wearing a black suit, black sunglasses, right? Yeah, Matthew.
But the RCMP, like, that's just their traditional uniforms. They're not always like that. They are like the FBI.
Yeah.
They work in office buildings and stuff.
So the RCMP, when they go out on patrol, they're not going to be wearing that outfit, right? They're on parade, on ceremony, they wear that outfit. And historically, when they first were created, they were on horseback because that was the easiest way to get around fast, right? Today, you know, they have drones and things, right? They do the same thing. They do the same thing. It's the police of the country, right? They're not spies. I mean, maybe they do spy, but they're not spies. But yeah, the Americans, I mean, in all law enforcement, when you look at pictures of American cops versus Canadian cops, the American cops look cooler, right? Like the Los Angeles police uniform was created by Hugo Boss. Like, you know, like, Yes, Matthew.
So when there is like a really extreme situation, who do they call? Do they call like the York Regions ETF, or do they call the RCMP SWAT? Like who shows up?
Well, firstly, there's no such thing as SWAT team in Canada. We call it the ETF, the Emergency Task Force. Well, that always the closest comes first, and then they they take over, right? Different jurisdictions. Whoever can make it to the threat the fastest is the one that goes there the fastest. That's why when you call 911, who are the first people to show up? Usually the fire trucks, right? And then maybe the ambulance, maybe the police, because they're the ones that are able to get there faster, right? All right, so I can't load the rest of this thing for some reason, because that's what happens when we rely on the internet. Can anybody else load the last slides? Oh, here we go. Not everyone got loaded. No, wait, animal welfare. Oh, here we go. Go Transit. Even the Go Transit has officers, right? The TTC has officers. YRT. Anyone ever been busted for not paying the YRT or the Viva?
Yes.
There you go. You got busted by their agencies. Toronto Housing Community, right? And then of course universities have their own policing establishment. Right? Even the railroads, the Via Rail, etc. All right. So that's basically, in a nutshell, a rather large nutshell of all the, or most of the important governmental enforcement agencies, federally and provincially and locally, and even just institutionally. Now, let me ask you this question. Yeah, Matthew.
So are the people at banks, like the security guards there, and then the guys that run the Brinks truck, are those private run or government?
Those are private security, so that's something entirely different.
But they still carry guns.
Why do they have
Hired private security.
from the government?
Say that again, you cut out.
You said in Canada all the banks are run by the government, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
then why
they're
do they not?
regulated by the government, not run by the government. But that guy sitting at the front in his chair, security guard, that's a private security agency. You won't see too many private security agencies with guns, if any. And there's good reason for that, especially in Canada. In the United States, again, very different. Now, let me ask you this. Why do we need so many enforcement agencies, policing agencies in Canada? Criminals. It all comes down to criminals. Okay. Yeah, Matthew?
Do Brinks trucks drivers have guns?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, they do. They do.
They do? Are you
I think they do.
sure?
I think.
I highly
They carry
doubt.
so much money. They carry like millions, I swear.
Doesn't matter. Let's see. Brinks truck driver have guns. Oh, they do. Brinks still allows drivers to have shotguns. But it all depends. Armored car companies. Huh.
Aren't they the most vulnerable to get robbed though?
Oh, they get robbed all the time. That's why they have bulletproof vests and stuff. Yeah, it's a tough job.
Do you know how much they get paid? Because that, I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. Have to Google it. Remember your careers class? You can figure it out somehow. Yeah, I knew one of my good buddies used to be the head of security for a very, very, I'm not going to say his name, famous, wealthy guy in Canada. And basically, he was his private security, the head of the security team. And so there's also those agencies, right, which are not they are regulated by the government, but they're not, controlled by the government, right? And the military has American military, ex-military soldiers, etc. have there's a few big companies that are hired as mercenaries. Obviously in movies that they're made to be like totally different, right? Like what are those old guys? That movie series with the old guys, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone.
Terminator,
No,
Expendables.
Expendables. Yeah, that kind of thing. That exists. They're real. Okay, so for the rest of the class, I have posted things for you to work on. If you have not finished what I've already posted, work on those. More importantly, between the as prime minister, well, I guess there's no more importantly or not. And again, maybe I'll change the due date just so that you have time, but I'll give you some time to work on it. Let's make that Monday. How are your other classes going? Does anybody have like a lot of work or not a lot of work, or like a lot of homework? What's going on out there?
I have law, and I think I have a few people in the same classes as me, but he gives us quite a bit of homework. Not too bad though. Just like questions, a lot of reading.
Yeah. Well, law, if you pursue the discipline of law and being a lawyer, you're going to be reading a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Get it? A lot.
Sada, who's your teacher?
Sirianni. Why did I forget?
Is that the only law teacher like for grade 12? Do you know if
Raw.
yeah, Miss Gra is teaching grade 12?
I don't know.
She's teaching grade 11, I'm pretty sure, because when I went in yesterday, I saw her.
Yeah, but did she teach both or just grade 11?
All the teachers are only teaching 2 credits right now, so maybe next quadmester.
I have it like next semester, like after January.
It doesn't say already who your teacher is?
No, is it supposed to say?
I don't know. Did you get your next semester
We only know
timetable?
the timetable, like the course. We don't see our teachers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Like the first time we all found out who our teacher was when you sent that class invite.
Some
Oh.
people have their teachers on their timetable. I don't know.
Weird.
Like one of my friends had it.
Yeah. You know what? And things have changed a lot in the last couple of weeks. So anyway. Okay, get to work. Now you guys are expected to do asynchronous lessons for the rest of the day. Got it? Have a good afternoon. If you need to talk to me, send me a PM.